Hello, everybody. Welcome into GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Wednesday, March 19th. Hope everybody's having a great day so far. Today is a big show. It is our pre-March Madness show. We're going to be breaking down the first four games that took place yesterday, the first four games that are taking place today, as well as taking a look at our NBA Power Rankings, as we do every single Wednesday. Then we're going to look at the Aaron Rodgers situation. He's not going to the Vikings. The Vikings are not interested in him. We're going to talk about where he might end up after that, as well as what the Mets might do and MLB's debut of Roki Sasaki. But before we get into any of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, March 19th. But like I was saying, we're going to get into a little bit here on the first four games. Two of them are gone so far as North Carolina absolutely decimated San Diego State University. And in the first game of March Madness, we had our first buzzer beater of March, of the season. And that's exactly how you want to kick it off. We're going to start off in that game, that 16 versus 16 seed game for the right to play Auburn. Auburn, the number one overall seed, that saw Alabama State take down St. Francis, PA on a buzzer beater. Final score 70-68. Now, St. Francis came into this game at a 16-17 record. They were looking to be one of the few teams with a sub-500 record to make the tournament. Now, technically, they're already a part of that, but finishing the season over there at 16-18, still a solid year for them. We saw Knox go in, Amar Knox go in and hit that game-winning shot off of a full court heave, I should say, down to what basically was a Hail Mary lob. It works out for Alabama State, and now they get the honor and distinction of playing the number one overall seed in the tournament. This is the kind of momentum you can take into a game like that and make it a little bit close. Auburn has not played its best basketball down the stretch here. Auburn has for sure been one of those teams that struggled of late. When you take a look at what the Auburn Tigers have done recently, Auburn did not make it to the finals in their conference tournament. They lost to Tennessee in the semifinals. Before that, right before the regular season ended, they dropped two straight games. They lost to Alabama and they lost to Texas A&M. They've been struggling down the stretch here, and that's not what you want to see out of an Auburn team that's supposed to be the best team in college basketball. Now, this does mean a lot for Alabama State. Do I think they're going to have enough to pull up that upset? Absolutely not. It's just not going to happen. We've only seen it happen once. It's not going to happen again. We just don't see 16 seeds win. If you're putting that in your bracket, it's not. It's a fun story, but I do not see it happening there. The other game, North Carolina came in a very important 11 versus an 11 seed, taking on San Diego State University. This was a statement win for the Tar Heels. The Tar Heels go out, and with all of the noise surrounding their program, with everything saying, we don't deserve to be in there. They don't deserve to be in. They found a way in because their athletic director was on the board. West Virginia should have been in. UNC came out there and won 95-68 against a solid San Diego State team, winning by 27 points, just dismantling them in this one. Is the exact kind of statement that they needed to make to shut the people up, right? An 11 seed and someone from the first four has gone on to go on a bit of a run every single year for the past couple years. The way that North Carolina is playing right now, they finished off the regular season pretty hot. They made it all the way to the semifinals going up against Duke. They're a team that is very, very dangerous in this tournament right now. They're advancing to play Ole Miss. And Ole Miss is a team that is a little bit inconsistent. Ole Miss, a very good team out of the SEC, but they're not a team that you should be super scared of if you are the North Carolina Tar Heels. The Tar Heels offense is among the top in the country. They're in that range on the offensive side of the ball, in that top 57 that we talked about yesterday as part of that first checkbox to win a national title. Their defense slacking behind just a little bit, but this is a very good UNC squad. They play with passion, they play fast, they play hard. Now that they're in the dance, anything can happen, right? That's what they say. You've just got to get in and you give yourself a chance. Giving North Carolina that shot there against a good Ole Miss team and them coming out there like they did against San Diego State last night proves that they think they deserve it. Just because they went out there and they played like they deserve to be there doesn't necessarily mean that they did deserve to be there, right? There's two things can be true at the same time. They can play like a top 68 team in the country, but they also don't have the resume to be a top 68 team in the country. And unfortunately, that's just how it goes sometimes. It's a bad luck for West Virginia. North Carolina found its way in, the last one in, but they've got to continue to prove themselves. They're a hot upset pick right now after doing what they did last night. We'll see if that momentum can carry over into their game against Ole Miss. But turning our attention to the games going on right now. Mount St. Mary's, the 16 seed, taking on American, the other 16 seed, with 13 minutes to go in the second there. They are currently up by 10 points. Mount St. Mary's probably going to win this game. The winner of this game is going to face Duke here. It's not very close, right? Again, this is the only game that these two teams have a real shot of winning, but Mount St. Mary's looks like they're putting the pressure on American, and I just don't think American has it in them to come back. But the big game here, and one that I think is going to be really important, is Xavier versus Texas. The winner of this game is going to play Illinois. Illinois, a 6 seed, is a little bit inconsistent, and I think this is one of those teams that can go on a bit of a run when we're trying to figure out which one of these 11 seeds, which upsets to look at. This is one that I am circling here. Xavier comes into this game 21-11, while Texas at 19-15 was that 14th SEC team to get in. Right now, models project, the matchup predictor on ESPN projects that Texas was going to win 53% of the time, but Xavier is favored by 2.5 in this one. This is a true toss-up. It tips off at 9:10, just 10 minutes after our show ends, but this is going to be a really good one. We've seen Xavier be really hot as of late. In their last 5, aside from a loss to Marquette, they've won 4 of those. They've won 4 of their last 5. They beat Creighton in that stretch, a really solid 9 seed. Texas, on the other hand, also been really good. They've taken care of multiple tournament teams in their last 5, including an overtime win over Mississippi State, an overtime win over Texas A&M, a 4 seed, and Vanderbilt, a 10 seed, as well as just a 4-point loss to Oklahoma in a rivalry game. Oklahoma, a 9 seed, and just a 9-point loss versus Tennessee, who made it all the way to the conference championship game before losing to Florida. Tennessee, very good 2 seed. This is a Texas team that has played a lot of teams tough. This is going to be a really good one. I've got Texas, I think, winning this one. I don't think Xavier is not going to be able to hang with this Texas squad. But when we're looking at it, either one that wins, I think they have a good matchup coming up next against Illinois. I think both of them have a very good shot of winning that one, and I will be taking them to move on in my bracket. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. What did you think about these first 4 games? What did you think about these guys coming in and playing in the first 4? Do you think the first 4 is an advantage or a disadvantage? I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention to the NBA. The NBA Power Rankings, like we do every single Wednesday, are coming up next here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on their fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Wednesday, March 19th, if you were just tuning in. We just finished going over the first 4 games, where they stand, and what might happen in the Texas-Xavier game taking place tonight. In this segment, we turn our attention to the NBA. Lots of basketball going on this week, and every Wednesday we go over our NBA power rankings, fresh off the presses for you. Lots of changes up at the top, near the bottom, in the middle. We'll talk about all of that in a second, but before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, March 19th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into the NBA power rankings here for you. Starting off, as we always do, down at the bottom, where for the second week in a row, we've got the Utah Jazz. This is a Utah Jazz that just really has nothing going for it. This is a Jazz team that continues to just be the worst team in basketball. The Wizards were holding this spot for a while, but as it stands, the Wizards since the trade deadline have actually played pretty solid basketball. The Jazz have now tied the Wizards for the worst record in the NBA. And it just does not look too good for this Jazz team, even as we look into the future. They're here at number 30. At number 29, we've got the Charlotte Hornets. The Hornets drop a spot here. They haven't really done anything too differently this week. They continue to lose. They didn't lose a back-to-back for the first time in a very long time. But upon further consideration, they have been swept by the Washington Wizards, so they drop a spot as the Washington Wizards climb one spot. The Wizards were at 29 last week. Now they go up to 28. They've been playing good basketball. They've climbed all the way up to 15 wins on the year, which isn't great. Now they're out of that 100% contention for that for the best odds, I should say, at the number 1 pick in the lottery. They're now tied with the Utah Jazz at 15 wins. They've played really good. We've got a lot of minutes out of Chris Middleton for the Washington Wizards. The young guys are playing good basketball. This draft class has been amazing for the Wizards, where it was a relatively weak draft class, but still having Alex Sarr play a lot better as of late. Keontae George has been hitting a lot of threes. This is a very, very good Washington Wizards young core. They need a couple more years to really figure it out, but if they get a really solid piece in the draft, whether that be Cooper Flagg or someone else at number 1 or number 2, this is going to be a Wizards team that is going to take a pretty big leap next season. Maybe they can even find a way to keep a guy like Middleton or Smart around, although I doubt that they stick around in Washington. At 27, we have the New Orleans Pelicans. Injuries continue to hit this team. Zion Williamson has come back, and he's been playing pretty solid, but the rest of the team continues to just be hurt, unhealthy, and it's just not working out for this Pelicans team. A disaster season, injuries just up and down the lineup. Whenever they think they're getting healthy, they continue to get hit with the injury bug some more. Now Trey Murphy out for the rest of the season. This is a Pelicans team that just has probably lost all hope. At 26, we have the Brooklyn Nets, a team that's doing better than they wanted to at the beginning of the season, a team that I think still deserves to be in consideration for out of the basement of the league. Those bottom five, still the very, very bottom basement of the league, but the Brooklyn Nets are just a tier above that. They came into this season trading for their pick back. They wanted to be at the basement of the league, but they've got a couple guys that just are willing them to a little bit more success than they need. Overall, it's an atrocious Brooklyn Nets team, as it is with all these teams down here at the bottom, but they're a little too good for where they want to be going into a full rebuild. At 25, we've got the San Antonio Spurs. De'Aaron Fox done for the season, something that I thought would happen a little bit sooner. He's been dealing with a finger injury. He's getting surgery on it. He's been shut down. More injuries continue to hit this San Antonio Spurs team, and ever since Victor Wembanyama went down, they just continue to fall in these rankings. At 24, we've got the Philadelphia 76ers. The 76ers haven't been that great, but the emergence of Quentin Grimes has been something to watch. He's been amazing down the stretch here. He's someone that they were able to get at the deadline from the Dallas Mavericks. That one has worked out pretty well for them. He's taking advantage of all the opportunities that they're giving him over in Philadelphia. It's still not enough. This is a bad Philadelphia 76ers team. Paul George is being shut down for the rest of the season, and that just kind of shows Paul George and Joel Embiid out. That's the story of their season right now, and they're near the bottom of the league. At 23, we've got the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors have been playing better than awful basketball as of late, but they're still in that next to bottom tier with the Sixers and the Spurs and the Nets. This is a team that just needs to get healthy at the beginning of the season. They're a team that could potentially find their way to a play-in. They're a play-in level team, in my opinion, in the East. Not necessarily the thing you want to be in an Eastern Conference, but overall, this is a Raptors team that's got a lot of talent. You've got Scotty Barnes. You've extended Brandon Ingram from when you traded for him. It's just not happening this year. 5.5 games behind the Heat for that 10th spot. It's just they're not catching up. At number 22, it is those Miami Heat. The Heat have been awful as of late. 1-9 in their last 10. They've lost 8 straight games. They cannot catch a break right now. The Heat just continue, ever since trading Jimmy away, they just have not been able to catch anything. This team is awful. They need a hard reset right now. At number 21, we've got the Chicago Bulls, tied with the Miami Heat at 27 games back of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Still pretty much locked into that play-in tier. They've been playing a lot better as of late. The Miami Heat is a cutoff line from the bad teams to the okay teams. The Bulls started off there. Probably the Bulls wanted to be a little bit lower, but they've got some solid minutes from a lot of the guys that they got. Caruso's been playing solid basketball of late. Not a guy you really want to extend, though, so we'll see what happens in Chicago. At 20, we've got the Trailblazers. I like this Trailblazers team a lot. They're fighting for that play-in spot. They're just 3 games back of the Dallas Mavericks, 2 games back of the Phoenix Suns. But this is a Portland team that's been incredibly hot since the All-Star break. They're 4-6 in their last 10. They've been able to take downs. They've taken some tough losses against some really good teams, including a buzzer beater in overtime to be handed a loss by the New York Knicks. This is a very good Trailblazers team, and they're someone that I think will eventually take that last spot in the West. At number 19, though, we have the Phoenix Suns. Like we said, 2 games up on those Portland Trailblazers. They've still got KD. They've still got Booker. Beal is still there, and he's letting everybody know that he's still there. He's not going anywhere. But this team is a sinkhole waiting to happen. It's about to implode on itself when it comes to the offseason. For now, they're just trying to scrape and claw their way to a potential playoff run. Maybe they find their way in. The Atlanta Hawks here at number 18. They're here. They've been playing pretty solid basketball. They're not the worst. They're not the best. They're a pretty average basketball team sitting near the middle. You've got Trae Young. You've got a lot of the guys that they've brought over in the trade deadline working out for them. But this is not a team that's in any way, shape, or form going to win or threaten anybody that's really going for a title when we get to the playoffs. Along the same lines, we've got the Dallas Mavericks here at number 17. The Mavericks have had maybe the worst possible last month and a half or so. All of the guys they've traded away continue to be successful. All the guys they traded for are dealing with injuries. It's gotten to the point where they might have to forfeit games down the stretch here. They're sending Anthony Davis to the G League so that he can get ready in a rehab start. Can't wait for him to drop 150 points on those G Leaguers. That should be a fun thing to watch. But the Mavericks still in a playoff race. Like we said, they are in that final play-in spot right now, one game up on the Phoenix Suns. They might find their way into the playoffs despite all the problems that they're going through. The Orlando Magic are here at number 16 as we get near the middle of the league. Once they start to get healthy, they're a dangerous team. We saw them stop the winning streak of the Cleveland Cavaliers earlier over the weekend. This is a dangerous team when Paolo Banchero is playing his best basketball, when Franz Wagner is playing his best basketball, when Jalen Suggs is in the lineup. When you've got everybody there, this is a team that could challenge for a top 3 seed in the East, but they're dealing with too many injuries to really do that. Still, if they can get healthy for the playoffs, maybe they can make some noise and potentially make it to the second round. At number 15, we have the Sacramento Kings. They've kind of been locked in this position where they're good, not great. They're one of those teams that's probably locked in to a play-in spot in the West. There's a big mix right ahead of them. They're a little closer to the Mavericks than they are to the Clippers and the Timberwolves and the Warriors and the Grizzlies. But this is a Sacramento Kings team that, after losing their star, continued to pump out pretty good games. They've got guys that came in and replaced him. Losing Domantas Sabonis for a little bit definitely hurts, but I think they're better than that, and I think this is a Kings team that maybe could make it out of the play-in tournament. At number 14, we've got the Detroit Pistons. How about the Detroit Pistons? What a turnaround for them. They continue to be up there. They're not even in the play-ins right now. They're 5 games up on the Atlanta Hawks, pretty much solidified themselves, as long as nothing falls apart down the stretch here, into the 5, 6, or 7 seed, or 4, 5, or 6 seed in the East. This is a Detroit Pistons team that went from the worst team in basketball to a playoff team, not even just a play-in team, a playoff team. They've done amazing things over there in Detroit. Cade Cunningham is going to lead this team for a long time. The Clippers here at number 13 separate what was a trio last week. The Clippers playing good basketball. They're 1 game back of the Golden State Warriors, 7-3 in their last 10. They've won their last 4 basketball games. James Harden playing good basketball. Bogdan Bogdanovic is starting to get comfortable. When Kawhi Leonard is in the lineup, this is a dangerous Clippers team. They could find their way to that 6th seed if they keep playing like this. At number 12, we've got those Indiana Pacers, currently holding on to that 4 seed by half a game. Half a game up on the Milwaukee Bucks. They went out there shorthanded, took care of business against a very good team last time out. They were able to hold on, win that game on a buzzer beater. The Indiana Pacers are a good team. They're just a little bit too inconsistent for me to truly believe in them. At 11, we've got the Milwaukee Bucks, a very similar spot for them. They've got that 5 seed right now in the East, half a game up on Detroit, half a game back of the Indiana Pacers. This team is dangerous. They've got Giannis, they've got Dame. Do not let them get hot. They're going to get Bobby Portis back soon, and once he returns to that lineup, this is a team that I think is going to get into a whole new gear and secure that 4 seed in the East. At number 10, we've got the Timberwolves. They have been playing amazing basketball. They've only lost 1 game since Julius Randle has returned to the lineup. They have been red hot. They are on a collision course to get out of that play-in area. They're 8-2 in their last 10. Obviously, they were riding a bit of a win streak before they lose that close one last time out, but this is a team that's fighting with Golden State, only half a game back of them, and this Western Conference playoff race is really heating up. At number 9, we've got the New York Knicks. This is a team dealing with a couple injuries. They're still pretty solidly in that 3 seed in the East, but the injuries, they've got to figure that out soon. They've got to figure out how to beat the best teams. They've really struggled against the top teams in the league, whether that be the Celtics, the Lakers, the Cavs, the Thunder, any of those teams really up there at the top. They've really struggled against. Because of that, they're down here at number 9. And number 8, we've got the Los Angeles Lakers. They are holding on to that 4 seed with everything they have right now. Without LeBron James, they've really struggled. But Austin Reeves has come out and been amazing. He's averaging over 30 points in this last week. Him as a number 3 option is amazing. You've also got him with, of course, Luka Doncic and LeBron James when he comes back. LeBron James needs 7 more games to hit that 65-game threshold to get any kind of award. We'll see if he gets back to that. That's going to be a big question. But currently, they're a game back of the 2 seed, tied with the Grizzlies for that 4 and 5 seed, a game back of Houston and Denver for that 2 and 3 seed. It's going to get real tight down the stretch here. Speaking of the Golden State Warriors, they're here at number 7. They've only lost 2 games since Jimmy Butler has joined that team, and they continue to play great basketball. They're half a game up on the Minnesota Timberwolves for that 6th seed, 3 games back at the Lakers and the Grizzlies for that 4 and 5 seed, and they're playing amazing basketball. They're a very dangerous team because they are hotter than just about anybody else in basketball right now. At number 6, we've got the Memphis Grizzlies. Just a really solid team, right? They've kind of been middling over their last 10 at 5 and 5, but this is a team with really good offense, really good defense. They're in that hunt for the 2 seed, and once they get Ja Morant going a little bit more, they're a team that's going to be very hard to beat. The Denver Nuggets, as we get into the top 5, hold this spot tied with the Rockets for that number 2 seed in the West. Again, that Western Conference playoff race is going to be insane. Nikola Jokic playing at an MVP level. It's going to be really tight. I cannot wait to see what happens there. They're still 12.5 games back of the Thunder, and because of that, I don't think Jokic wins the MVP, but he's playing incredible basketball and keeping the Nuggets near the top of that conference. The Rockets, here at number 4, have climbed back into the top 5. They have been red hot. 7 straight wins, 7-3 over their last 10 games. The Houston Rockets continue to be dominant. They have a young squad. They kind of hit a little bit of a lull there in the middle of the season, but they're back when it matters the most, and they are fighting for that number 2 seed in the West. At number 3, we've got the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics are one of 3 teams in the NBA to have clinched a playoff spot. Them, the Cavs, and the Thunder, of course, are top 3 teams. But the Boston Celtics here are not going to be able to catch up to that 1 seed. I think Cleveland is just a level above them right now. And if those 2 teams clash in the playoffs, it will be a legendary series. The Oklahoma City Thunder hold on to that number 2 spot. Once they get a little more healthy, they will be right back here. They've started to figure it out again. 9-1 over their last 10 as they continue to be near unbeatable. They're just really good. This is an Oklahoma City team that's very hard to beat, and I think with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander playing like he is, they're going to be very tough out in the Western Conference playoffs. And of course, that leaves the Cleveland Cavaliers at number 1. The Cleveland Cavs, once again, the best team in basketball by record. 56-12, that ties them with the Oklahoma City Thunder. Their 15-game win streak got snapped by the Magic. They've lost 2 straight, but still, this is a team that is on pace to be one of the best Cavs teams ever. They just do it by sharing the ball. Donovan Mitchell, amazing player. They've got 3 or 4 other stars that can come in and take over a game if he's having a bad one, but this is just an elite Cavs team. They go out there night in, night out, and they just win basketball games. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think of my NBA power rankings? Again, top 10, Timberwolves at 10, Knicks at 9, Lakers at 8, Warriors at 7, Grizzlies at 6, Nuggets at 5, Rockets at 4, Celtics at 3, Thunder at 2, and the Cleveland Cavaliers are number 1. I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, updates on Aaron Rodgers. The Minnesota Vikings are out on him. We're going to talk about where that leaves him and what that means for the other teams that are pursuing him and where he might end up. We'll be right back here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now. Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Wednesday, March 19th. If you were just tuning in, we just finished going over our NBA Power Rankings, our weekly NBA Power Rankings every single Wednesday. In this segment, we turn our attention to the NFL. Aaron Rodgers back in the news again. I know, shocking. It's been a while since we talked about Aaron Rodgers, right? But big news this time. The Vikings, the Minnesota Vikings, are out on Aaron Rodgers, a place that seemed like he wanted to go. We'll talk about where he might end up now. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, March 19th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into a little bit on Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers was linked to the Vikings. He's been linked to a lot of different teams. There's really 4 teams that are still left out there for him, but we're going to talk about the Vikings real quick. The Vikings today came out, and it seems like they've decided to move forward with last year's first-round pick out of Michigan, J.J. McCarthy. McCarthy was picked in the top 15 of last year's draft amidst one of the more talented quarterback draft classes, one of the most talented offensive draft classes that we have ever seen. He is going to be in a very good system. He's not a guy that I think is going to be able to light up the world, but I think he's at least on the same tier as a guy like Sam Darnold. Him and Sam Darnold, I think, can do the same things. He might be a little bit better than Sam Darnold too, but we saw what Sam Darnold was able to do with this Vikings team last year. You get a guy like J.J. McCarthy in that system, the sky is the limit. This is a very, very talented young kid, and this is a Vikings team that is built to support a mediocre talent, built to support even a mediocre talent at quarterback. They should be very good next year. The Vikings still, I expect, to go out and bring in a veteran backup, whether that be a guy like Joe Flacco or a guy like Jameis Winston. I expect them to go out and get somebody else. Maybe they even take a stab at bringing back Teddy Bridgewater as a backup after he returned in the playoffs for the Lions last year. Maybe they can bring him in as a solid backup there. We'll see what happens. Joe Flacco, I expect most likely to be the guy they bring in. He's been a solid backup wherever he goes as of late, and he's been around the league. You get a guy like Joe Flacco in that offense with his big arm and gunslinger mentality, Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison are going to eat if anything happens to a guy like J.J. McCarthy. But turning our attention back to Aaron Rodgers, where is he going to go? Aaron Rodgers, now 42 years old, is not necessarily a young lad, right? He's someone that's going to potentially retire, and that's option number one. Is he going to retire? He's flirted with retirement for a very long time now. He's flirted with retirement for just about every single season, at least in the last couple years. I don't think he's going to retire. I don't think he's done with football. I think football might be done with him before he is done with football. As we were saying in our production meeting today, Aaron Rodgers is going to Aaron Rodgers himself out of the league, right? He's going to be himself a little too much when he loses the amount of elite talent that he has, and teams are just going to turn a cold shoulder to him. I don't think he's at that point yet. I still think he's got a year or two of good football left in him. I just don't see him retiring, but I feel like he's going to be forced into retirement rather than retiring because he is done and teams still want him. That's how I feel, though. Aside from him, there are 4 teams that still really need a quarterback. The Giants, the Steelers, the Browns, and the Titans. All 4 of those teams desperately need a quarterback. We're going to start with the long shots here. The Titans, a long shot. They haven't really been connected to Aaron Rodgers that often, and the reason for that is that they have the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. They're expected to take Cam Ward out of Miami, but they could trade out. They could trade out of that number 1 pick, go out, trade with the Giants or the Browns or the Steelers or whoever wants that number 1 overall pick, and then trade and then sign Aaron Rodgers. But that's a more bridge quarterback move. They feel like they want to start to build towards the future. They've got a new GM this year, a head coach in his 2nd year now with this team. This is a team that's looking to take that next step. I doubt that they still have Will Levis, and it feels like Cam Ward at number 1 is a lock, whether that be the Titans or not. I still don't think they go anywhere else other than the quarterback out of Miami. The other long shot here, and maybe this isn't as long of a shot, but it's the Browns. The Browns have kind of been lurking in the shadows of this Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes for a very long time, right? The quarterback situation in Cleveland is amongst the worst in the entire NFL. Right now, if the season started, their quarterback being trotted out there would be Kenny Pickett. They traded for Kenny Pickett from the Eagles earlier this offseason for DTR and a 5th-round pick. That's not what you want if you're a Cleveland Browns fan. I understand they're paying a lot of money to a guy like Deshaun Watson. I understand that the quarterback situation has been a nightmare ever since they moved off of Baker Mayfield. Bringing in a guy like Aaron Rodgers could get that done. They had meetings with Russell Wilson earlier this week. That at least signals to me that they're very much in the market to get another quarterback and that they don't really want to run out there with Kenny Pickett. They also have the 2nd overall pick in the draft, so they could use that to get a guy like Shitter Sanders if they wanted, or they continue to add to the defense after paying Myles Garrett $40 million a year. But Aaron Rodgers, I think, is a real option for the Browns. I don't think Aaron Rodgers necessarily wants to go to the Browns, but if he kind of runs sour in New York and Pittsburgh with how long he's taking to make a decision, the Browns could be someone that swoop in and take him there. They're definitely a little bit of a dark horse team to land Aaron Rodgers. The front runners, though, as they've been this whole time, have been the Giants and the Steelers. The Giants had emerged as favorites to land Aaron Rodgers basically immediately after they failed to land Matthew Stafford. They were very, very much in on Matthew Stafford. He decides to go to the Rams. The reason that they're so desperate to get a quarterback is GM Joe Schoen and head coach Brian Daboll are on probably the hottest seats in the NFL right now. They're desperate to make a big splash to save their jobs, right? They're going out there. They need to get a guy that can come in and be good, right? Brian Daboll, I think, is a great head coach. Joe Schoen, I'm a little bit less sure about as a GM, but they're attached at the hip together, right? They both came to Buffalo they both came from Buffalo in the same year. These are guys that need to have a good season, so they are desperate to get a quarterback. The Giants, because of that, have been the most aggressive in the sweepstakes, we'll say, for Aaron Rodgers, right? But the New York Giants, also as desperate as they are for a quarterback, drafting number 3 overall, are not going to wait. The longer it takes for Aaron Rodgers to make a decision, the less likely it is that he goes to the Giants. The Giants might lose patience, and if they don't feel like they're going to be able to get a quarterback at 3 that they like, they'll sign Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston or Joe Flacco, all of these guys that have come in and visited with the Giants. If he doesn't sign before then, they might just draft a quarterback at 3 and then take another veteran backup, right? All of these guys are available, and there's all these options, but Aaron Rodgers seems to be option number 1. They want a guy that can, come in, win games for them so that they don't lose their jobs, and that's perfectly fine. I think this is a Giants team that, if they're able to get Aaron Rodgers, is a team that could win 8-9 games next season. It's a solid team around him. They just have struggled with injuries, and especially at that quarterback position, they need some help. But the longer Aaron Rodgers takes to make a decision, the less likely the Giants are to wait on him, and the more likely they are to go for option 2 in Russell Wilson, or just go straight for a quarterback at number 3, or even trade up in the NFL draft. The Steelers, though, are a really interesting one. The Steelers have the luxury of being patient. They brought in Mason Rudolph, not a guy that they want to be their starting quarterback, but they've been linked to Aaron Rodgers for a very long time. They also have been linked to Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson was on their team last year. Now, a bunch of the Steelers faithful are getting a little annoyed at Aaron Rodgers. They don't want Aaron Rodgers, I'm aware. They want a big change. But if they want a big change, if they want stability at the quarterback position, you're not going to be able to get that at 21. So a lot of the Steeler faithful are saying you've got to trade up, you've got to tank next season, but they've always been caught in this NFL purgatory area where they've been better than bad, 9-8, 10-7, making the playoffs, losing in the first round. Aaron Rodgers, I think, would take them over the top there, but this is going to be a short-term situation if Aaron Rodgers comes in, and I know a lot of Steelers fans don't want another short-term situation. They want to have the answer for a long time, but it's tough to get that answer. And having Aaron Rodgers in there is not the worst thing in the world. I think at the end of the day, the Steelers probably are the team that bring in Aaron Rodgers. I know he's got a big personality, and there's a big culture set already there by Coach Tomlin, but I think Aaron Rodgers to the Steel City is the one that is most likely to happen because, as he, like I said, as he continues to take his time, the Giants continue to get more and more restless, and they're more and more likely to bring someone else in or just move off of Aaron Rodgers entirely. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. Who do you think Aaron Rodgers goes to? What do you think about J.J. McCarthy taking the helm for the Minnesota Vikings? I'd love to hear your thoughts on any of this. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention over to the world of baseball. We had a debut from a highly anticipated rookie in Japan. Our first home run of the season by a person you might not expect. We're going to talk about all of that and more in Game 2 of the Japan series coming up next here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found. For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Wednesday, March 19th. If you were just tuning in, we just finished going over Aaron Rodgers. The Vikings out on him, no longer interested in signing Aaron Rodgers. We talked about what that means for them and what that means for Aaron Rodgers, where he might end up. In this segment, we turn our attention to baseball. The season has kicked off. The first series is done. The first series sweep is over with as the Dodgers concluded that 2-game series against the Chicago Cubs over in Japan with a 6-3 victory that saw the first few home runs of the season and the debut of Roki Sasaki. We're going to talk about all that in a second, but before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, March 19th. But like I was saying, we're going to get into a little bit on the world of baseball. Roki Sasaki makes his season debut, his MLB debut for the Los Angeles Dodgers over in Japan. We also saw the first home runs of the MLB season. The Dodgers opened up this 2025 season with a 2-0 sweep of the Chicago Cubs. The Chicago Cubs, not on par with the Dodgers. The Dodgers, like we've said in the past, are maybe the best team ever put together in the history of baseball. They are going to challenge that 120-win record set by the Mariners back in 2001. I think they've got a real shot to do it, and they've started off on the right foot. A 2-0 series sweep of the Chicago Cubs today, winning 6-3 behind home runs by Tommy Edman, Kike Hernandez, and Shohei Ohtani. The Shohei Ohtani home run, a little bit controversial, didn't really matter at the end of the day. The first home run of the season, though, was hit by who else but Tommy Edman. Tommy Edman, the second baseman, depth infielder / outfielder, formerly of the St. Louis Cardinals, made his way over to the Dodgers last year. In 37 games, had 6 home runs. He has the first home run of the season this year. He had 13 home runs with the Cardinals a couple years back. That is his career high. He's already off to 1. He is the prime suspect for the first home run in the MLB this season. But it wasn't just him. Kike Hernandez, another guy not really known for pop, joined him before Shohei Ohtani, someone who might hit 80 home runs this year because he's Shohei Ohtani, was able to catch up and add a home run of his own. But his home run was a little weird. It was hit, a fan interfered with it a little bit. It was ruled it was already going to be a home run. It hit off the fan into the field of play. On the field, it was ruled a home run. When they went to review it, the umpire said, ruling on the field stands, it is a home run. That was a little bit interesting, but Shohei Ohtani gets his home run in the 5th inning. That was the last piece of scoring the Dodgers had. They opened up to an early 3-0 lead, 2 in the second, 1 in the third. Then the Cubs came back and answered a little bit. Roki Sasaki made his MLB debut. He went 3 innings, only allowed 1 hit, 1 earned run. The issue with him is his control was a little bit out there. He walked 5 batters, struck out 3 of them. 56 pitches over 3 innings isn't the worst, especially when you're walking 5 batters. He did walk in a run, though. He didn't go long enough to be awarded with a victory, but he had a really solid first outing. Has stuff to work on when he makes it back to the United States, but having that experience under his belt, going through a lineup once or twice, is really good to see. 3 strikeouts, 5 walks, only 1 hit allowed is huge for a superstar, a phenom that's going to set the pitching world on fire in the MLB. Alex Vezia gets his first save of the season. Both bullpens came in and really shut them down. There was not a single run allowed after the 5th inning. We saw Justin Steele, the starter, get hit and kind of got blown up a little bit. In 4 innings pitched, he allowed 5 earned runs. Not what you want to see from your guy in the second game of the season. Usually bats don't really wake up this early, but over in Japan, the bats were awake here. 9 runs in this one. This was a good game. The Cubs were able to get a lot of hits together against the bullpen. They just weren't able to string them together. They had more hits than just the 3 they had last night in their game 1 of the Japan series. But still, the Dodgers opened the 2025 season 2-0. The Chicago Cubs 0-2. They head back finish up spring training. They're not done with spring training yet. They're going to come back, play in America a couple more games before starting the regular season next Thursday. Just 8 days away before first pitch in the U.S. officially starts. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. What did you think of the Japan series? What did you think of Roki Sasaki? Did you think he looked good enough in his MLB debut? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we finish up our show going over the Mets. Like I said, just 8 days until the regular season kicks off in the U.S. We have to make our way through every single team. We've got just 6 teams to go now, not including the Mets today. We're talking about them, previewing what they did this offseason. They were very busy, handed out over $1 billion in contracts. How much is that going to help them? A team that was just 2 wins away from making the World Series. We'll talk about that next, coming up here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Wednesday, March 19th, if you were just tuning in. We just finished going over the second game of the 2-game series played in Japan by the MLB between the Dodgers and the Cubs. In this segment, we continue our baseball coverage, looking at what the Mets did this offseason. They were busy, handing out over $1 billion in combined value over contracts. Of course, a lot of that went to one man. We're going to talk about that in a second, but before we do, remember, if you are going to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, March 19th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into a little bit here on the New York Mets. The New York Mets had a busy offseason after a busy postseason. They finished last year going 89-73. They were a last-minute addition to the playoffs, third in the NL East, but they made it all the way 2 games short of the World Series, losing 4-2 in the NLCS to the Dodgers, taking care of business in Milwaukee with a Pete Alonso basically walk-off home run to come back from an 0-1 deficit to win 2-1 in the wild card series, and then they took care of the division rival Braves 3-1 in the took care of the division rival Phillies, I should say, in the NLDS. Over $1 billion, like I said before, were given out in contracts to this team. A lot of that went to one man, Juan Soto. Juan Soto helped lead the New York Yankees to the World Series last year and is the highest priced free agent in the history of sports. 15 years. $765 million. That is $51 million a year for Juan Soto. And you know what the crazy part is? He is worth each and every single penny of that. He is just 25 years old. He's going to be there through his prime. He is amazing. They're going to be a much better team. But along with him, they also were able to bring back Mr. Met himself, Pete Alonso, on a 2-year, $54 million deal, $27 million a year for him, bringing Clay Holmes, who was the closer, back-end bullpen guy for the Yankees last year, but has some starting experience to be a starter. I really like that move. I think Clay Holmes can be a solid starter. 3 years, $38 million for him. They also brought in some more starting pitching help. Frankie Montas, 2 years, $34 million. Sean Manaea, bringing him back on a 3-year, $75 million deal. Some help for the bullpen. Bringing in A.J. Minter from the Braves, 2 years, $22 million to be a setup man for Edwin Diaz. They've got Ryan Stanek coming back on a 1-year, $4.5 million deal, as well as re-upping on the bench bats. Jesse Winker, 1 year, $7.5 million after acquiring him at the trade deadline from the Nationals last season. Nick Madrigal on the infield guy, an infielder to be a utility guy, 1 year, $1.35 million, and some more starting pitching depth with Griffin Canning on a 1-year, $4.25 million deal, and Jose Urania on a minor league deal signed just recently because they've been dealing with some injuries to the pitching staff. When you take a look at that pitching staff, it's the weakness of this team. Right now, Sean Manaea, Frankie Montas, both injured. They're gonna swipe back in when they can. But without them, you're looking at a rotation of Clay Holmes, who I like, but hasn't really had a lot of starting experience in the MLB, Kodai Senga, David Peterson, Taylor McGill, and Griffin Canning. These are not guys that you want to rely on long term, but this is also a team that outside of the rotation, when you look at the bullpen, is amazing. So if they can survive the first couple innings and get to the end, you got Edwin Diaz, one of the best closers in baseball. AJ Minter, an excellent setup man. Jose Budo, at the other setup, you've got Ryan Stanek, Reed Garrett, Danny Young, Max Koranick, and Paul Blackburn in the bullpen as well. This is a very good Mets pitching staff in the bullpen. The one weakness with them, like I've said, is in their rotation. But that they weren't done acquiring people. They went out and made a big trade as well. They brought in outfielder Jose Siri from the Rays, giving up relief pitcher Eric Orz to Tampa Bay. Jose Siri's speed, defense, and a little bit of bat is going to be another big addition to this lineup. I'm very excited to see how he fits in New York. But it wasn't all addition. Obviously, they lost a couple pieces as well. They lost a couple key starters, including Joey Lucchesi, key pitchers, I should say, Joey Lucchesi, Adam Ottavino, Jose Quintana, and Luis Severino. All of these guys had pretty solid innings for the Mets last year. They also lost a couple bats that were pretty big for them. JD Martinez was a guy that was huge for them in the middle of the season. Jose Iglesias, their second baseman that they picked up, a little bit of a pop star too, but he stepped up and was a source of just vibes, really, for a Mets team that was built off of that last season. And Harrison Bader, a solid outfielder out of the Big Apple. Still a really solid team. We look at that rotation. You've got runner-up to the MVP, Francisco Lindor, leading off. You got third place in MVP voting in the AL, Juan Soto in right field, Pete Alonso at first base, Brandon Nimmo, Mark Vientos, who really stepped up big at third base in the playoffs. At DH, you've got Jesse Winker, Starling Marte, whoever you want to put there. You could put Jeff McNeil when he comes back from injury. This is a very deep batting team. Jose Siri in center field, another place you could put a guy like Starling Marte. Brett Beatty at second base, a young guy. Luis Angel Acuna behind him as well. They're dealing with injuries to Francisco Alvarez, their starting catcher, but they've got Luis Torrens down there for now. Alvarez is going to be a big part when he does come back, but this is a solid lineup, up and down that order. There is not really a place of weakness that I look at when I look at this Mets lineup. Of course, Lindor and Soto are constantly in MVP running, right? That's a deadly 1-2 punch. Pete Alonso, one of the best pure power hitters that we've seen in a long time. He's very good. You've got Jose Siri. I love him hitting 7th. When you get Francisco Alvarez back, you pair him up with Mark Vientos and Brett Beatty down there in the middle. This is going to be a very dangerous team, which is why Vegas is projecting them to win 90 games. That is good for the 4th most as far as Vegas projections go. Only behind the Phillies, the Braves, both in their division, and the Dodgers, which is wild that the NL East has 3 of the top 4 projected in all of baseball, not just the MLB. This is a very, very good Mets team, but I don't think they've got enough to win the division. They should make the playoffs again. Bringing in a guy like Juan Soto is going to help this team. They won 89 games last year. I think just without having that starting pitching, it's really going to hurt this team. I like Clay Holmes, I like Kodai Senga, but outside of them, they don't really have guys that I think I can really rely on, and the rest of that division is really good. You talk about the 2 of the 3 teams ahead of them in their division, the Braves and the Phillies, they got better. The Braves continue to add talent simply just by getting healthy. The Phillies went out and continued to add depth to that rotation. They continued to add depth to that lineup. It's a very dangerous team, and I think because of that, they're going to do a very similar thing that they did last season. I'm going under on the Mets at 90.5. I'm putting them at 87 wins this year. Still enough to make the playoffs, but a little bit tight there, just like last year. This is a great Mets team. Adding Juan Soto only is going to make them better in the long run. But this year, I think there's just too much going on in their division, in the NL, and it's going to be very, very tough to win. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think the Mets do this offseason? What do you think the Mets do this year as the MLB season is right around the corner? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And thank you, everybody, so much for tuning into today's episode of GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I have been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. We will be back tomorrow. March Madness begins then. We'll be previewing all of the Friday games. We'll be going over some of the Thursday games that have already happened and much more. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit and the